what if the Big Bang wasn't some kind of magical, unknowable explosion, but a predictable mechanical failure? Today, we're diving into this really fascinating model from a mechanical engineer, Mukesh Vidyabhushan-Singh. He looks at the entire cosmos not as a math problem, but as a physical engine. And the wildest part is how this totally modern mechanical blueprint seems to line up almost perfectly with the ancient wisdom of the Vedas. And this quote right here, it sets the stage perfectly. We're being asked to just stop thinking about magic and infinity for a minute and start thinking about things like stress and strain and structural limits. It's basically an invitation to pop the hood on reality itself. All right, so here's our roadmap. We're going to start with the core blueprint of this cosmic engine. Then we'll get our hands dirty and inspect the hardware and the software. After that, we'll check out its operating cycle, flip through the user manual, and finally, figure out where we fit into this whole grand machine. So, first things first, we're throwing out the Big Bang. Instead, this model gives us the Vidyabhushan-Bounce. And the name tells you everything you need to know, right? This isn't about some massive explosion. It's about a recoil, a snapback. You know, the idea is actually brilliantly simple. In the real world, in engineering, nothing can stretch or get squished forever. Everything has a breaking point. So this model just applies that exact same law to the entire cosmos. The birth of our universe wasn't magic. It was a mandatory thermodynamic failsafe. A catastrophic but totally predictable snapback to equilibrium. Okay, so if the universe is an engine, what's it actually made of? Let's take a look at the fundamental hardware, because this is where we find our first just startling parallel between modern mechanics and these ancient observations. In this model, space isn't an empty void, not at all. It's a physical thing called the Universal Lattice. I want you to think of it like an incredibly stiff, pre-stressed structure. It's the engine block of reality, holding all that cosmic tension. The reason we don't feel it is because it's almost frictionless, but it's the material that makes literally everything else possible. And this visual just nails it. Over on the left, you've got the lattice compressed down to its absolute limit. That's the Vidyabhushan point. And then on the right, boom, the recoil, the cosmic snap. That's the moment where all that stored potential energy just violently expands outward, creating the structured, harmonic universe we live in. Now, let's just switch gears for a second. Thousands of years ago, Vedic texts described a concept called Akasha. And what was it? Well, they saw it as the first, all-pervading, indestructible element, a fundamental substrate that gives rise to all matter, and this is the crucial part, carries vibration. It carries sound. So when you put them side by side like this, the connection is, well, it's undeniable. A physical, foundational medium that carries vibrations. One's called the Universal Lattice, the other's called Akasha. It really is like the ancient sages and the modern engineer are describing the exact same hardware. They're just using different words. Okay, so we've got our hardware, the engine block. Now let's talk about the software, the energy that's actually running on that Universal Lattice, or if you prefer, Akasha. So the cosmic snap is basically the software's boot-up sequence. It's that initial violent recoil that we saw a minute ago. But this wasn't just a change in shape. It was a massive, massive release of kinetic energy, an impulse that would go on to power the entire system. And wouldn't you know it, the Vedic system has a term for this too. It's called prana. Now, it's often translated as life force, which sounds a bit mystical. But if you look at it mechanically, it's the thermodynamic current. It is the kinetic energy of the recoil, the very motion and vibration that animates the entire universe. And here is where my mind just gets blown. The source material actually calculates the frequency of that initial cosmic snap. It's the Planck frequency, a 1.85 with 43 zeros after it, hertz. That's a staggering number. And this model proposes that this number, it's the primordial vibration of the universe. It's the A in the sacred Vedic sound of OUM. So let's just put it all together, because this is huge. The mechanical event of the cosmic snap, that's the kinetic recoil they called prana. And its frequency, the Planck frequency, that's the primordial vibration of Aum. As you can see, the mechanical event and the ancient description, they're a perfect match. You know, every engine has an operating cycle. And what's wild is that, according to this model, the ancient sages mapped out the long-term thermodynamic cycle of our universe with some really astonishing accuracy. This is just amazing. The Vedic Yuga cycles, they map perfectly onto a four-stroke engine. Seriously. Satya Yuga is the intake stroke. High efficiency, lots of order.
Treta and Dwapara Yugas are the compression strokes, where tension starts to build. Then you get Kali Yuga, which is ignition, maximum compression, maximum chaos. And finally, the Pralaya or dissolution, that's the exhaust stroke. The system snaps, it resets, and the whole cycle begins all over again.
Okay, so we've got an engine and we've got an operating cycle, but how do we actually use it? Well, the source reframes two really key Vedic concepts, Dharma and Agni, as engineering principles.
So, from an engineer's point of view, Dharma isn't about duty or religion. It's about structural integrity. To follow your Dharma simply means to act in a way that aligns with the natural laws of this cosmic engine, which allows you to maintain your stability against all the stress and tension of the system. And what about Agni, or fire? Well, this model says it's just a tiny, visible version of the cosmic snap. So when you watch wood burn, you're not just seeing a chemical reaction. You are watching stored potential energy hit its limit and violently recoil into light and heat. It's a mini bang. And this image just captures that idea so perfectly. Fire is the optical signature of the Universal Lattice snapping back to a lower energy state. It's the engine ringing, like a bell, a tiny little echo of that great big snap that started everything. Which brings us, of course, to the most complicated part of any cosmic model, us. Where does consciousness fit into this giant cosmic machine? The source proposes that consciousness isn't some magical ghost in the machine. No, it's a natural function of the machine itself. We are, in essence, localized thermodynamic loops, or little engines inside the big engine. And our job is to take the chaotic vibrations of the lattice and process them into an ordered, coherent reality. And that, maybe, is the ultimate takeaway. We are not separate from the universe, looking in on it. We're an integral part of its operation. We're made of the exact same hardware, and we run on the exact same software. We are, quite literally, the engine becoming aware that it's an engine. So I'll leave you with this final thought from the source material. You know, the Vedic sages, they mapped the stars, the yugas, the very fabric of reality, not by looking out, but by looking in. They seem to understand that if you're a part of the engine, the most direct way to understand the whole thing is to tune your own frequency and resonate with it. So what if the secrets of the cosmos aren't really out there at all, but are already running inside each and every one of us?